The third pillar of success with the DSP program is called shaping. And shaping is about bringing out her best self in order to be with you. Shaping allows you to mold her and design into her behaviors that are going to be most appealing and useful to you. People are fluid. A girl that's cold and bitchy to one guy at a club can be the most warm, giving person to someone else. Just like we play roles, we have a certain role that we play with our parents, and that's different from the role that we play with our bosses. Women can be completely different depending on the situation, your history with her, and your identity. And this starts immediately from the very first approach, the very first time you meet her. She's going to start becoming who she's going to become depending on who you are. If you have a sexual identity, she's going to be highly sexual around her, no matter how she acts around other people, even if she's not sexual with anyone else. I had a girlfriend that was a complete dirty, sex-obsessed freak, and her best friend didn't even know that she was having sex. So this stuff can be very powerful, and it'll get women to compartmentalize your role and be someone completely different with you than who she is with everyone else. And you can use this to create the type of relationship you want, and also how you're going to be as a couple and her identity in that.
I think that people have, like Vin said, people have a lot of different sides to themselves. And in that respect, they're fluid, meaning, they're flexible as far as what they will show in a given context. And I think that women have, sides of themselves that are not attractive to men and that are not conducive to having a good relationship. And they also have traits that are. And I think a lot of times men bring out the negative stuff in women because, for example, a woman can be very vicious and critical. And a woman will do that if the man doesn't have a strong vision. First of all, if you understand the fundamentals of vision and compliance and you're applying those things, a woman will be much more shapeable. In terms of specifically what you shape for, not every woman is going to be able to fit exactly to your ideal, but she will have certain traits that you do like and that you do want to see more of and that are useful or conducive to having a sexual relationship with her, and she'll have traits that aren't. And it's your job to convey what you expect from her and what you don't. And you want to encourage the good stuff, and you want to really discourage the bad stuff. And we're going to talk about specifically how to do that, especially how to, reaffirm, stuff she does that you like, and then how to get her to stop doing stuff you don't like.
Yeah, Brian, that's great. The way I think about shaping often is that you're really going to be able to bring out her best self with you, and even encourage her to further develop that best self so she's even more amazing when she's around you. I've had a lot of times when I've dated a girl and she just broke up with her boyfriend, and she does things with me and she acts in a certain way with me that she would never have done with her previous boyfriend. In fact, she actually tells me that she used to say no to him for certain things. So it wasn't as if I made her do anything. It was just she was more comfortable doing that with me, and even more so, she wanted to do those things with me. It was already inside her to do it. Her just previous boyfriend had gone about it the wrong way and actually made her resistant to doing it.
It's very easy to come at, to try to apply compliance and shaping from a manipulative standpoint or from a negative intention. But step back for a second and think about relationships you've been in and how being in that relationship was a learning experience where you grew. So if you hadn't been in that relationship, you would probably be a different person than you are today. And in that sense, a relationship is, no matter how casual or serious, is a context that forces change and forces growth and forces you to forge an identity. So when you're with a woman, there's kind of this, there's this this great rule that I abide by. If it does end, you want to leave her better off. You want to leave her in better shape than how you found her. And I think that's a great principle to follow. And if you think about your relationship with her, the time you spend with her, as a growing experience for her and you, but a growing experience for her, you want her to grow into a good person, into her best self. So that's how you can come at this from a more noble, positive intention, where you're really trying to help her be the best person she can be. And you are the motivation for that. You are the reason why she's going to want to be that awesome woman.
And it's important to understand that we're constantly shaping the people around us. If I think of two particular people who are at opposite ends of the spectrum, one is a guy I know who people tease him all the time. For some reason, he does something that shapes people into teasing him and making fun of him and making jokes at his expense. Then I think at the opposite end of the spectrum of a really successful businessman I know, and people tend to treat him with respect. They really look up to him and they treat him in a very amazing way. And I see that all the time. People are really shaping how people treat them. So what we're doing in this process, we're actually going to understand how we actually do that so we can control how people treat us and how people behave around us, so that we can get the type of reactions and responses that we really deserve.
And I think you're always shaping right from the start. Essentially, you're telling people how you expect to be treated. And they believe you. You can say it verbally, explicitly. They won't necessarily obey that. What people believe and what they obey is your paralanguage, your nonverbal cues. So the difference between Matt's two examples, the first guy is immediately sending the message nonverbally with his body language and so forth that he doesn't believe he should be treated with respect. The other guy is sending the message that he's saying to people with his body language, with his eye contact and his tonality, the way he speaks to them. He's saying, respect me. I am someone that you should look to for leadership. I am likable. I am someone you should get to know. Essentially, he's saying, I'm an awesome guy, and people believe that. They believe it more so than if you were to just verbally tell them. So, fundamental shaping is about becoming aware of the implicit messages you're sending with your paralanguage, and you want to make sure you're sending the message that first and foremost that people should respect you.
One of the most straightforward, simple, easy methods for shaping is something called screening questions. And these are questions that you use when you're first getting to know a woman, just to learn about her personality. Questions like, do you consider yourself a supportive person? What's the most adventurous, spontaneous thing you've ever done? If a friend needed help, are you the type of person to go out on a limb to help that person? These are good because when you're first meeting someone, there's motivation to make a good impression. And by putting these things out there, positive things that you want to see in her, she's going to be very likely to answer in your favor. In a sense, you could say that these are weighted questions. And by weighted means one of the answers is more obvious than the other as being the correct answer. So, for example, if you wanted a girl to be productive and intelligent, you could say something like, do you consider yourself productive? Are you intelligent the way that you organize your time and go about your business? Or are you more, laid back and sit on the couch and watch TV? The correct answer is really clear. And because she's in the mood where she's going to want to impress you and make a good impression, she's going to choose that thing and therefore become more that way while she's around you.
A real common experience just about everyone's had that can serve as a reference point for this is to think about when you went to an interview for a job you wanted to get. And there's a very clear distinction between who has the power there, who's in control. And simply by, walking in and that the person who's interviewing you is sitting in the big chair and they're leaning back and they're asking you these questions, and it's your job to prove yourself, that immediately in your mind puts them above you, puts them as like an authority over you. Now, in an interaction with a woman, you don't want to be playing games of pretending to be cocky and being overconfident. They can see through that. But you still want to be in the big chair because, you might be contributing time from your life to her. I mean, you might end up, hanging out with her, and that's time out of your life. So you want to make sure she's worth your time. And that's the mindset I have when I first meet a woman. I'm not just interviewing her. I'm not asking question after question and putting her on the spot. But, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, is this girl worth my time? Is she someone I should pursue? The place that comes from is real standards. And your standards get higher the more experience you have. But everyone listening to this right now can, immediately think about what they would want in a woman beyond just looks. And it's counterintuitive, but actually the more picky you get, as long as it's not an excuse to not approach, like, oh, she's not my type, or oh, she's not good enough for me. As long as it's not an excuse, but a legitimate standard, a legitimate thing that you would want in a girlfriend or a woman in your life, then you're going to be coming from a place of power right off the bat. And women can sense this, and it's so different from what other guys do. Other guys try to prove themselves. They put the woman in the big chair. You want to be in the big chair.
Yeah, and I see that all the time, Brian, just by the way guys talk. If we could imagine when you're a woman and she was going to a social event and she said, tonight, I'm going to find someone to marry, we would think, geez, that's a bit desperate. What if there's not a guy that's suitable? And that's how a lot of guys talk with picking up. They say, I'm going to go out and pick up tonight. They're not wondering if there's a woman good enough for them or whether there's going to be a woman up to their standards. They're pretty much saying that they're willing to almost take anything. And what we're teaching is how to be a natural. And this is definitely something that naturally happens when you've got standards. You really naturally screen girls to see if they're good enough for you. And by asking certain questions that have them feel as though they need to live up to an expectation, immediately they're putting in an effort to please you. And although at first you may be just trying to pick up girls at all costs, when you start to ask some of these questions, and if a girl doesn't live up to your answer, you're definitely willing to either walk away or probe more to see if she can live up to your expectation. Your game will really improve because not only will there be a power shift in your interactions, there'll be a power shift within you and how you feel about yourself.
Part 3 is social leverage and establishing themes. Now, what I mean by social leverage is talking about people in your life or having the girl see people in your life interact with you in a way that shows how they relate to you. So, for example, if you go out with a bunch of friends who respect you really highly, especially if it's a girl, if you go out and she sees you interacting with them, maybe one of your buddies buys you a drink, maybe a girl gets a coat for you. If they generally see people treating you well and they see people respecting you, that's called social leverage. Now, if they don't see it directly, you can still make it work. And it would be more indirect, but you would talk about things that women would do for you or things that guys would do for you that shows they respect you. That if you want a girl that's giving, you might talk about how a female friend of you brought like some chocolates for you or something like that. Whatever quality you're looking for in her, whatever you're trying to shape her to be, you show that other people in your life are already like that and actively doing things to show that they're that way.
Yeah, Vin, I see this all the time because often when a guy starts learning this stuff, he has a sudden jolt of awareness. And he'll often realize in his social circle that he's towards the bottom of the ranking or the ladder. Either people tease him or people don't give him a huge amount of respect. So it's very important that you realize that how people treat you is within your control. And women will look very closely at your interactions with other people, and especially how your friends treat you, and the sort of respect and the sort of level that people look up to you in just, I guess, your everyday life.
One thing you always want to stay away from in your initial conversations with women, and just as a general rule, is any negativity directed towards others. I actually prefer to make fun of myself a lot when I first talk to a woman, and I might even tease her, but I do not criticize other people, and I don't talk bad about past relationships. I don't bring up exes that hurt me or that I don't like anymore or anything like that. But I definitely talk about positive relationships I have, especially with women. And I will sometimes bring up ex-girlfriends, but I will talk about good stuff that they did. I won't really talk about sex or anything like that, but I'll talk about, fun experiences we had, maybe little things they did for me. I've had women do this to me where they've told me about these amazing dates guys have taken them on. And I didn't, get sucked into it, but I was very aware of how attractive that frame would be, or how easily a guy could fall into that and say, oh my God, now it's my job. I have to impress this girl because she's used to such a high standard. My level of awareness stopped me from doing that and being put in that frame. But I definitely do it myself when I'm talking to women. And I also will talk about my vision, but in more abstract ways. I will talk about why it's important. So I will get into my values. So, let's say you have a vision to do some kind of job, or some kind of, you want to help the world in some way. Somehow it's going to benefit the world. You say, I want to do so-and-so. I want to do X, Y, Z because, and then you go into why it's important. And you say, because I'm a person who believes it's important to help others and to be very caring and to protect those around you. What do you think? Or how about you? And then basically by stating your own values, you are implicitly screening her and telling her to meet a standard.
What people often miss is that, if they go out and they're thinking of screening in terms of, I want this specific quality, and I'm going to determine if this woman fits into that, and if not, I'm going to next her, I'm going to start talking to someone else, I'm going to discard her. What they don't realize is that women are very pliable in terms of emotional things and behavioral things.
I would say more so than guys.
Definitely more so. I mean, I remember, hearing about this is a long time ago, but some girl talking about how she liked buff, guys with big muscles and stuff. And I felt that urge to go into the gym and start working out to try to be that guy for her. So it works that way as well for men to do that. And quite a while back, I was on a date with a girl, and she was asking about my ex-girlfriend. I don't usually bring up ex-girlfriends early, but she was asking about my ex, and so I kind of told her about her. And what I basically said was, we didn't work out for various reasons, but, we had a great time together. And wow, she had this touch, when she touched me, I would just melt. And from then on that date and subsequent dates, this girl was doing everything to try to get that same reaction from me, touching me on the arm, touching me on the chest, being very slow and sensual. And it really shaped a positive behavior that I wanted. And so that really worked. Girls do this all the time. This isn't something brand new that we invented. Girls have been doing this forever. I was once on a date with a girl who, this girl was hot. She had a lot of guys that liked her. And she told me how she was into Hello Kitty, which was kind of funny. And then she went on and tell me that some guy bought her some diamond Hello Kitty. It was a Hello Kitty miniature thing made out of diamonds or something. And I was thinking to myself, that guy's a pussy, and it's really ridiculous. But you can see that's how they do that. And I even because I thought she was so attractive, I could feel that feeling oh, I better find something Hello Kitty for her. And then when I was at the mall and I saw the Hello Kitty, I felt it. I saw it, and it reminded me of her, and it reminded me of that story. It reminded me of the motivation to try to please her. So it was very powerful.
And keep in mind, you're a man. You're not as pliable as a woman is in terms of shaping, and yet you still felt that urge. And if you can combine shaping with the us frame, which hits a woman on a biological level, it speaks directly to what has evolved in her for thousands of years. She's not going to resist it. She's not going to fight it. In fact, I think that women have a very basic need to nurture and to care and to support. So when you tell her how to do that, she instantly will want to, because that's part of her nature. I think that was a strong survival strategy that women have had, that females have had for a long time, is, okay, if I need to pair bond, what role am I going to play? And for a woman, that's a supportive role. So it's wired into her to need to nurture. And in fact, if you don't give her opportunities to, she will get bored and feel like she's not being herself. So you have to shape.
And along with social leverage is the idea of establishing themes. And this is really like the topics that you talk about, things that you bring up during the date or during your first meeting with the girl, or even on the phone. And these themes can be very useful not only in the long-term behavior of her, but also to shape short-term decisions. For example, I knew a guy that was very, very good at picking up strippers. He could walk into any strip club and within a couple hours pick out the hottest stripper and walk out with her. And there was a lot of technical things. He really understood a lot of how the strip club worked. But the real thing that he did when I listened to him, like he basically told me what he did. And it was a lot of the technical things about how, she's got to clear it with her manager before she leaves, and so it pays to be cool with the manager, and how they walk after they get off the stage, and which pattern they go in, and what you do when they do that. But the real powerful thing that I noticed that he wasn't aware of is the conversation that he had with the girls. And he would always be talking about living in the moment, taking risks. Your life is going to end any moment, so you should just go for it and do what you want to do. And that type of theme of like going for what you want, living in the moment, if you talk about that and you establish that as a theme, and she agrees with you and she brings up things like that too, that's going to activate that part of her mind that behaves like that. And so when you go to get her out of the club, she's going to be congruent with that behavior. And so by setting it up using that theme, it's going to influence her decision there. And then once she makes the decision, you can even shape her even further. This can also be used in terms of, say you don't really have a great place to take the woman to have sex with her. Say you've got like your car or something, or say you've got, say you live in a place and say you live with your parents even. It would be useful to bring up themes of having an open mind, not being judgmental, and things that really reinforce that. So when she sees your place later, she's not going to come to a bad decision about you. And the living in the moment thing, the spontaneity thing, those themes are also good on regular girls if you're trying to take them home that night or take them out of a mall or a shopping center for a same day hookup.
Yeah, if you're really looking to have like a same day hookup, if you're trying to sleep with the woman that night, you got to point out, or it's really crucial that you shape her to be spontaneous in the moment, someone who takes risks. And because if you think about the kind of behavior that's required for her to sleep with you that night, she has to be that kind of person, or at least that kind of person that night, or at least that kind of person with you. So when you get her to agree that she is the kind of person that lives in the moment and takes risks, she will want to stay congruent to that when you leave the club or when you go back to your place.
In regards to the social leverage, if you look at, I guess, a business when they look to market their services, one of the most powerful things they do is use testimonials. It seems credible if someone else talks positively about what you do. So I've found that other people can actually shape for you if you have the right dynamics in your social situation. So first of all, be aware of your friends and how they treat you and how they view you, because I've found that she will really look at how other people treat you and think of you, and that will shape her behavior. A really good example I can think of is my next door neighbor had a couple of girls around, and he was telling them about me as far as my ability with women and women really liking me. So they came to visit me with him. And he said on the way between walking between his apartment and mine, they both undid their tops, 2 buttons. And that was quite an amazing thing that happened. It almost shaped them into being a lot more sexual with me than they were with him just 10 minutes before that.
And a real common experience that guys, a lot of guys deal with, especially if they're having problems with women, is that their friends, the guys they hang out with, or just the people they hang out with, treat them like a whipping post. So if you're hanging out with people that make fun of you a lot, don't see you as an equal, and tease you a lot and make you kind of the butt of a lot of jokes, that's going to be really unattractive to women, and a woman is immediately going to follow their lead. If she sees other people treating you that way, she will immediately start treating you that way, or at least she won't respect you enough to even interact with you. So if you have a group of friends that don't respect you, or make fun of you and treat you kind of like the tag along or the least valuable of the group, you need to find some new friends, definitely.
Part 4 is what I call selective observation and warm reading. Selective observation is seeing something that she does. You're taking hard evidence, all right? If she's at the bar and you can tell that like her friend is sick, maybe had too much to drink, and guys are hitting on the drunk friend, and the girl you like is actually being protective of her, you can take that evidence, you can take what you observe, and you can give her a compliment on that, and that's going to shape her to be that way to you. So you could say something like, wow, I noticed that you were being very protective of your friend. That's really, really cool. And that will make her protective. Now, protective is not necessarily something that I would shape for my girlfriends. I mean, usually I'm protective for them, but you could also adjust your shaping. So you could say something like, you're protective, you're supportive and nurturing. You really take care of people when they need you. And then that would be more applicable to your relationship with her. Warm reading is very similar, and warm reading has to do with getting to know her a little bit, maybe in conversation, and then making a comment about, perceiving her a certain way. So if she's talking about, traveling and going to places in Europe or something like that, you could say, wow, you're really adventurous. You like to try new things. You have an open mind. You're spontaneous. And then when you try to get her to go to a new bar with you later on, it's going to be very easy because you've already pre-built that shaping into her.
In our training, we talk a lot about focus. And what I've realized is that a lot of times guys tend to focus on the negative stuff. So say they have a 10-minute conversation with a woman and she says 100 different things. 99 of them are positive, but one is slightly negative, maybe an insult, maybe something he doesn't like. He'll remember and think of that one thing. So a lot of this observational type shaping is really focusing on the positive stuff and encouraging her to do more of it, rather than what most guys do and notice the bad stuff, which actually encourages her to do more of the bad stuff. So it really comes down to what you're looking at and what you're focusing on, because I think it's almost impossible to expect a woman you've just met to behave in a fantastic way that you like all the time initially. It takes a little bit of time for her really to know what you like and to get an idea of your personality and to begin to live up to your expectations.
I've always said that being good with women is just a byproduct of being good with people. And being good with people means being good at liking people, finding the things you like in people. And a really organic, kind of natural way to do this in a conversation with a woman is to focus on the things she does and says that you like. And when you see it, put a stamp on it verbally. Say, I see this about you. So, she has a silly laugh. You say, I love your laugh. I like how playful and silly you are. We can be silly together. Okay. And then you us frame that. All right. And then what you can also do at that point is escalate. And, you can touch her, put your hand on her back or something. And at that point, it doesn't seem like you're copping a feel. It seems like she earned that escalation. She earned that touch. Completely flips the script from the old way of the guy trying to cop a feel and get touchy-feely with the girl. Instead, his touch is a reward, and she perceives it as something valuable, something that she wants.
A lot of this selective observation stuff is really what you put your attention on. For example, in our live training, the Drills Boot Camp, there's a drill that we do that actually gets you to train your focus to be completely positive and delete negativity. And this is kind of the same thing. So it's not only, actively selecting themes and putting themes out there, but it can also be like a defense mechanism if she's being verbally abusive or hostile towards you. You can delete the negative parts of her communication and only see the positive.